Well, welcome everyone. Welcome back from lunch. Let's get going with our judging updates. I wanted to introduce Anika Greene and Jill Wilker. We are privileged here in Northern California to have two highly experienced judge advisors. Both Jill and Anika have been championship judge advisors in Detroit and Houston for many years. The two of them have been instrumental in helping to develop the judging materials. Including the two of them sat and did a lot of the material that's in Game Manual Part 1 under the judging session. So with that, Anika and Jill, please take it away.
Great, thanks. So we're going to do a quick share of our webcams just so you can see that we're live people. I'm Jill.
I'm Anika. I didn't check my webcam out before, so the lighting's off.
No worries. So we're going to turn off in the sake of bandwidth. So just give us a second and we'll get started. We're excited to be here. Okay, here we go. Just some housekeeping before we get started. I think everyone is now familiar with the webinar format, but everyone is muted. Both Anika and I will answer questions that come in through the question box. We'll be answering most of those verbally. Private ones that are more very specific, we might handle separately or offline. And if we don't get through everything, we will post additional answers on our website. So we're grabbing the question log, and anything that we are not able to answer or that we don't get to, we will make sure they get answered on the website. And of course, everything is being recorded. Links will get posted maybe today if we're able to do that, otherwise by tomorrow. So with that, let's go. Anika, over to you.
So with judging this year, we actually have quite a few changes that we will be covering that will hopefully answer some of the questions that you have. But there are some things that are staying the same. So let's take a look at those first. There is still going to be an engineering notebook. Now, the engineering notebook is not a diary or meeting minutes. It really is a documentation of the team, the outreach and fundraising efforts, team plans, and the robot design. So it's really kind of a manual for the team and how the team runs. You might have team goals, team expectations, absolutely include robot designs. You can include how your meetings run, but judges are not looking for exact meeting notes of what happens during each and every meeting. Definitely having goals and outcomes from the meetings, that's a great thing to include, but we don't need to know how many people wanted cheese pizza and how many people wanted pepperoni pizza. The only requirement for the engineering notebook is for the team number to be on the front cover. That is incredibly important. A lot of that is to help the judges actually. There are a lot of notebooks that are submitted, especially as we go through the competition level. So having that team number on the front cover helps the judges find the correct notebook for the correct team. There's still going to be a judge's interview, a pitch interview. So 5 minutes of interview, kind of pre-planned presentation, and then 5 minutes of questions. Approximately, that's usually how the competition schedule runs. And that will be pre-scheduled just as it normally is in years past. There's also the same list of awards. So we still are looking for the same awards. No awards have been added. No awards have been eliminated. And then once again, the control awards are selected from the submitted control submission forms. So in order to be eligible for the control award, you must, or your team must, submit a control submissions form. Jill, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of, I'll say, energy around formatting of engineering notebooks. And so as you'll see here in just a moment with the introduction of what's being called a portfolio, there is literally no requirements on how you organize your engineering notebook. So you could have 20 notebooks, one for every kind of activity. So you could have one physical one or online one for CAD drawings and a different one for outreach. There is no requirements anymore around how your notebook looks. So we'll get into why that is in a minute, but I think just recognizing that you should have a notebook. It is how you kind of remember what you did, right? And it's
Right.
for the team. We will use it in judging. We expect, even with remote events, and we'll talk about that as well. I think that's it.
Perfect.
Okay, let's go into what's changed.
Ooh, which quite a bit has changed.
Yes.
So one of the biggest changes is the introduction of the engineering portfolio. One of the things we discovered is with engineering notebooks, they kept becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point that it was just not really conceivable for judges to go through the entire notebook of every single team in the small amount of time. So we're introducing, we being first, introducing the engineering portfolio. The engineering portfolio is a 15-page summary with the team number on the front page, and it's really a summary of your engineering notebook. So the question might be, is an engineering notebook required? The short answer is yes, because in order to create the engineering portfolio, you need to have a larger document, being the engineering notebook, that you can actually pull that 15-page summary from. The goal with the engineering notebook is for judges to have kind of a quick reference guide in the judging room, that they may actually go look through the portfolio, and they could possibly, potentially, I'm not saying they'll always do this, but they could potentially go out into the pits and request more information based on the portfolio. It's really also looking at how teams summarize their information. When you are applying for jobs, resumes, if you submit a 30-page resume, most likely it will not get looked at. And so really this is trying to help teams with finding what the most important information to share with the judges is.
But let me just add a little caveat there, which is technically an engineering notebook itself is not considered required. But as Anika says, it's really challenging, if impossible, to create your summary portfolio without that information.
Correct. Thank you for that clarification.
So, it really is technically not required, but you may be at a big disadvantage if the judges need more information or in creating your portfolio.
Absolutely. The criteria for the awards has been fine-tuned, specifically between the Motivate and the Connect award. There's been a lot of confusion in the past between what actually classifies as Motivate and what actually classifies as Connect. So there's a much stronger differentiation between the Motivate award and the Connect award. So when we're looking at the Motivate award, that's really, we're looking at how the team functions. We're looking at the team members' roles on the team. We're looking at how the team kind of funds their team. Do they have a team identity? Are they going out and helping kind of in the community gather people to become more interested in STEM and robotics? Whereas the Connect award, we're really looking at the connections the team is making with the engineering community, as well as what the team's learning goals are. So what is it the team wants to learn, and how are they actually going to make those learning goals happen by going and finding mentors? Perhaps there's a challenge in this season that you really need specific help with, or maybe your team as a whole wants to learn a very particular machining or a particular program. These are very broad examples. Who are you going to go out and connect with in the STEM community to help you reach those learning goals? Another change is in remote events, all teams will be getting a call back, and that will be pre-scheduled. This is very similar to the PIT interviews that are done later in the day, but it's pre-scheduled because it will be done virtually. And yeah, so all teams will be talked to for a second time. The other big change, just like the engineering portfolio, is the judging feedback. The judging feedback is, we are giving judging feedback, but it's only via a judging request feedback form. The form is coming soon, so please stay updated with that. But in order to get feedback, you do need to submit a feedback request form that will be filled out and then returned to you. Jill, is there anything you would like to add to this slide?
Yeah, so on the judging feedback, it will be not open, I'll say open-ended. It won't be comments in the feedback. It'll be, my understanding, the form that this will take will be you submit a form and say, here are the areas that I'm requesting feedback. And it'll exhibit things like the team submitted a portfolio, and maybe it's a beginner format, or there's not much there, or it's an exemplary model of a portfolio. Could be something like the team talked about or shared how they connected into their mentors and to the broader STEM community, and some maybe differentiation, and whether that was a beginning very simple type of connection, or whether it was really impressive. So it'll be more of a checkbox type of feedback. I haven't seen the final form. We'll see what it looks like when it comes out, but that's what I understand for right now.
Yes, and it will not be a, you will not be given actual like text written word feedback from the judges, as in your team displayed this very well. And it's just very challenging in an event to be able to go through each bit of text writing that judges write. And we want to make sure teams are getting the same kind of feedback across the board.
Yep. Great. Okay. So now we move on another change.
So the control award is actually moving up in the advancement criteria, or the advancement for the next level of competition. So the control award was actually swapped with a design award. You can see Game Manual 1, section 6.2 to see this change. And the control submission is actually separate from the portfolio. So the good control submission isn't included in that 15 pages. However, it should not exceed 2 pages. So we do not want 2 15-page kind of engineering portfolios, one being the engineering portfolio and the other one being the control submission. We are looking to limit the amount of documentation that is submitted to the judges. Please identify in the control submission 1 or 2 of kind of the coolest control aspects of your robot. Now, coolest is different from person to person, so whatever your team thinks is the coolest control aspects, and those are the ones you will be documenting. Please use the control submission sheet that is included in Game Manual Part 1 as well.
Yep. Okay. Now we move into some advice, particularly around the portfolio.
So there's probably a lot of questions about the portfolio, considering this is a kind of new thing that we are putting together this year. So some advice. Consider organizing your portfolio in sections based on the award. So if you have a little bit about each award, that will help the judges kind of look at what exactly your team has done. For the Think Award, we're really looking at how the team documents their actual engineering process. So do not include meeting notes in the design portfolio, the engineering portfolio. Really look at that. We're looking for that engineering design process. Include design strategy, lessons that were learned throughout the designing process, as well as some information about the designing, maybe software that you use, the CAD drawings, math that you use to reach your final design. So we're really looking at the engineering that took place to actually create your robot.
Great. Okay, any think questions before we move on? So this is the only slide we have around think. So it's the same criteria. I think, the one piece of advice I will give you is that we're going to basically advise the judges that the portfolio should give you the excitement to actually go and find more information in the engineering notebook. So they're going to want to see your engineering notebook because you have some really cool tidbits in the portfolio. So the portfolio does not have to be that complete documentation or that complete story. But you might, for example, with lessons learned, just say, hey, we conducted these different tests. This is the results we got. See this chapter of our engineering notebook to learn more about how we conducted our lessons learned, right? And the judges will be like, oh, that sounds so cool. I want to go and learn more about this team and what they've been doing, because this sounds like they really did a spectacular job.
Hence why it's a good idea to have a larger engineering notebook that has more information in your pits, just in case you do spark the judges' interest in what you're doing and they request to see that.
And think is remaining in the same advancement. So right after Inspire, think is the next highest award. There's no other changes in the advancement list. Okay, let's move on to, I think, wrong slide, sorry about that. Page 2, which gives us the difference between connect and motivate.
Yes. So the Connect Award section, that's where you're looking at or the judges will be looking for the team goals. So include information about your team goals, the skills developed, and your plan to achieve those goals. It's almost kind of like a learning plan. What does your team hope to learn throughout the season? Also include information on how the team acquired new mentors and or acquired new knowledge and expertise from their mentors. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be mentors that then join the team as consistent mentors, but maybe you wanted a piece of knowledge or advice and you went to or contacted a specific person that could help you with that. So it's really what learning your team has done throughout the season and who has helped you along the way and how you gain that help. The Motivate Award section that's where we are looking as judges for the team organization plan, such as your team identity. So team identity does not necessarily mean costumes and matching shirts, but kind of that when you go around, people know who you are as a team because you present yourself in a particular way. It could be through matching shirts. It could be through just general team attitude, kind of that consistent team identity and feel. Also the fundraising, sustainability. So how are you going to continue your team? Maybe your whole team is seniors and then there's 1 or 2 juniors or sophomores or even freshmen. How is it that you're going to sustain that team from season to season? Outreach events, how are you kind of broadcasting first and your team in local areas through camps or through demonstrations? This is where your team can actually be really creative this season because there might not be as many live events to actually present at. So how is it that your team is creating those outreach opportunities? Your team finances, how you plan to pay for everything on your team, and then as well as community service. This is also where you're going to explain the individual team contributions. So overall, the members on your team and how they help the overall success of the team. So really looking at the team as a whole, how the team is organized, fundraising, sustainability, outreach. So that's what we're looking at with the Motivate Award. These are the biggest award changes. So please make sure to read Game Manual 1. There's a lot more information on these awards in that area. These are kind of the snippets that we took out, but please make sure you read those, the award criteria carefully as it has changed this year.
And actually, Anika's a teacher, and we were talking about one of a great outreach event opportunities is now that everyone is on, web conferencing for schools. I think, Anika, you were saying that you have guest speakers come in regularly into your classroom.
Yeah,
right?
I'm trying to keep, so I'm an elementary school teacher by day, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And so trying to keep students interested virtually can be very challenging. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is get people in to speak to students. And I know that my elementary students would love having a junior high or high school team come in and talk about their robot. That would be so cool to them. So that's a different creative way. And now with things being virtual, it makes it a little bit easier to do throughout the day. Absolutely.
Exactly, right? You don't actually have to travel like you would if it was in school type of event. So some things to think about. There are lots of other creative outreach opportunities that I think people have started talking about, and definitely there's some Facebook groups for Sick Challenge. There's Reddit groups where people are sharing different ideas. So, but there is the traditional event, outreach events that you might think of, but definitely the world effectively is now available in a much easier way with outreach than we've ever had. Great. Okay, anything around connect or motivate? I don't see any specific questions on those. Okay, let's move over to innovate and design, which have not changed at all.
Yeah, so the Innovate and the Design Awards have not changed at all, really. I mean, maybe slight minor wording changes, but most of the changes happen with the Connect and Motivate, which is really trying to differentiate those two awards. Once again, I think there's been a lot of confusion in the past, and so we were kind of really excited to differentiate those awards and what it is that we're looking for. With the Innovate Award, it's kind of the same. We're looking for documentation and illustrations about how the team arrived to that specific design solution. Please highlight in that 15-page engineering portfolio how your robot or robot subassembly is creative, elegant, and unique in its design. And this is an area that might have to change throughout the season. I know at the beginning of the season, sometimes things that are really, really innovative are not so innovative towards the end of the season. So this might be an area where you can show how your innovation has changed. With the design awards section, we're definitely looking for robot CAD images or design drawings. And you need to make sure that you're documenting your strong industrial design principles and showing how the design has kind of changed throughout the season once again, and how it fits in with your team strategy, your team game strategy. But really just kind of the same thing for these two awards, Innovate and Design.
Yeah, particularly design, I think of as an aesthetic, right? So the idea with design is that the sum of your robot, so the different elements of it, whether it's your drivetrain or if you have any, attachments or, different aspects to it, that they look like they've been well designed together as different subsystems that come together, where that end result is well put together, right? So it's usually a beautiful design. It all comes together, and it doesn't look like it's being held together by string and duct tape. Great. Okay. You have just on our last slide some general advice. And this is what we know today, right?
Right. It's so interesting. Things seem to be changing consistently. So please do not say that this word is going to be the same for the whole season, but we have some general advice for events. So the remote events will have video conferencing for interviews. It is a first established interviewing system that I'm sure that Mark and Diane have talked about earlier, and they know probably more information than I do. We will have close-up pictures available, but it won't likely be zoomed in on one part of the robot. So we're looking for kind of just overall pictures, but not zooming in to specific areas of the robot. Really looking for interacting and interviewing the team.
Yeah, basically what I found, I did a off-season event, and it was, the best teams had really good pictures of like their subsystem, snapshots and sort of flowcharts of their software, and really talked about how they were presenting, and not just assuming I can show up like you would in a traditional event, maybe put the robot down in front and then point, right? That's just not going to work with video conferencing. So really thinking through that presentation side of it.
Yeah. This is where having that pre-thought out presentation is going to be so helpful for your team, so that you come in looking organized and ready to go and professional. And that means a lot to judges. They can definitely tell the difference between a team that's practiced and knows what they're doing, as opposed to a team who just kind of threw things together the morning of or the night before. Absolutely. Definitely have the engineering notebook accessible. Having a hard time with words today. That may mean creating small PDF chapters, highlighting different areas, but have that engineering notebook ready and available to judges just in case they ask for it. Once again, the engineering notebook is not required, but it is a very, very good thing to have. So I definitely suggest having an engineering notebook available for the judges. Also create a summary page that relates to the portfolio content and guides the judges to more information that they can find in the actual engineering notebook. So you may on your summary page say, if you would like more information on the specific robot event, please see this page or this section of our engineering notebook. That just helps guide the judges, and as opposed to having them flip through 200 or 500 pages, they're able to really zero in and hone in on one specific area. My biggest advice for teams is to be friendly, smile, be on time, and have a positive attitude, especially with things that are going on. This is new for everybody in the FIRST community, volunteers, teams, coaches, mentors, organizers. Please, I always say in my classroom, be gracious and courteous with what's going on. A lot of times things that happen in my classroom are outside of my control, and it's just as frustrating for me as it is for my students on the other end or their parents. So same thing happens here in the FIRST community. So please have that positive attitude. And gracious professionalism is required for all award categories. That is, I believe, the one requirement for every single award category. So please make sure that you are displaying that in all areas.
And it just dawned on me, we don't actually have a slide on Inspire, but there's no changes to Inspire. So Inspire is exactly the same. It is the culmination team. It is the team that does great in Think, great across the technical awards, and great in the what are called team attribute awards. So Inspire is done exactly the same, and you don't apply for Inspire. It's something that bubbles up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just in case teams are not aware, robot performance is actually not really taken into consideration for the Inspire Award. So we don't look at team placement in actual gameplay.
Yeah, we might get input on it. It needs to impress the judges, but there's not a particular rank that's required. So there's a question which I think is a good one, which is more about our summary page that we are recommending. So there's two places. Basically, you have an engineering notebook that could be 20 chapters, I'll say, right? And you have a 15-page portfolio where you want to leave the judges with enough information that they want to learn more. And so you need to create a way that basically maps, right? So a mapping. You can put one of your 15 portfolio pages to say, hey, to learn more about our Think content, here are the relevant engineering chapters and pages. That makes sense. You can do similar in your engineering notebook. So maybe an overview section about the team, and then basically being able to relay, hey, if you're interested in more information about our engineering process, here's where that's documented in its full glory, right? In its messy glory.
It's really a roadmap for the judges to find more information.
Correct. Yeah. What we're a little worried about, given there's now engineering notebook really doesn't have a structure that's mandated, and if the judges want more information in a traditional event, they would literally just go to the pits, ask the team to see their engineering notebook, say, hey, I have a question about more about your engineering process. Can you point me to where that would be, right? In a traditional event, that conversation would be easy. In a remote event, we're not quite sure how that conversation is going to be there. And so having that accessible, whether Planet Learning creates a site for engineering notebook links or content, or whether it's a Google Drive folder somewhere, that's TBD. We're worried about personally identifiable information, how much of that we need to store, the transitive nature of it, in the sense of it is only for that specific event and only for the judges. And we obviously don't want to, like in a Google Drive, have to share judges' personal email addresses, right? That might be. So anyway, we're trying to figure that out. We don't have the answer exactly on what it means to make sure that your notebook is accessible. Likely a website as your notebook, as long as it's something where it's accessible from a network connection and not with a login and etc., may be sufficient. We don't know yet. That is one of the things we're still trying to figure out. This is our last slide. We've got just a few more minutes, and both Anika and I would love to talk about judging for the rest of the day, but it is just after 1. What other questions? I know we have a bunch of rookies this year. What other questions do you have about the judging process? Anything overall? Definitely Game Manual Part 1 with the judging information, I think, is released. Mark, I don't know if you know whether that update has been released today or whether that will come relatively soon. Do you know when that section 9 of Engineering Game Manual Part 1 is going to get released?
It had been promised for today. I have not actually seen that it's been published yet. I'm checking right now.
Great. So here's a question from a rookie, which is, what is an engineering notebook? So I don't know, let's see, if we, on this slide, we talk a little bit about it. I don't know if, Anika, if you have a little bit more you want to share about the reason behind an engineering notebook?
So the reason behind an engineering notebook, I always kind of give this example when looking for kind of good engineering notebooks, is it's a documentation of the team throughout the season up until that point. So it should be kind of a consistent, I guess, running documentation of what the team is doing engineering wise in the community, gaining mentors, fundraising, how the team is run. You should be able to give Team B, Team A's engineering notebook, and Team B should be able to recreate Team A's a whole season. So that's kind of what the whole process is behind the engineering notebook. By whole season, I mean they should be able to recreate the robot design and iterations of the design throughout the season. They should be able to recreate kind of the community outreach programs. They should be able to kind of recreate the way that they gain mentors. You can almost think of it as a technical manual of the team. And so that's why having the engineering portfolio is pulling parts from that engineering notebook that are noteworthy, that the team would like the judges to know about.
And why is judging important? Can I just skip that? Isn't this all about the robot? My favorite question.
Oh my goodness. It's so funny. I always joke about this. Probably nobody really knows who the judge advisor is or who the judges are in an event, and that's absolutely fine. Whereas you know who all the field crew are, and they are the ones that get to interact with the teams. But really, first, it's more than just the robot. The ethos of FIRST is really creating future leaders and engineers in society and just making the world a better place. So that's where we have the judging aspects of the community outreach, the fundraising plans. Sometimes people get involved in first. I will tell you, I do not have a technical background. Teacher by nature, was liberal studies, played music in high school. First has changed my life. Ended up getting my master's in educational technology. So first really is more than just the robot. I guess that's my answer to that question. Judging is important.
And besides the awards that we went over, so the think, the control, design, innovation, connect, motivate, and inspire, I think those are all of the awards plus one, right? We get a judge's award as well.
Correct.
What is the judge's award?
So the Judges Award is an award that the judges have to give out to a team that doesn't really fit in any of the award criteria. It's not really a hard luck story award. I know that there's a lot of challenges that teams go through. Some teams go through the same challenges. Some teams have sometimes just a really rough season or rough year where everything seems to go wrong. But really, that's not what the judges are looking for. They may be looking for how a team overcame challenges. They may be looking for a very specific mathematical thing that teams did. They may be looking at a very specific thing that a team did in the community to just make the community a better place. It's not a second place award like, oh, we really wanted to give the design award to 2 teams. We can only give it to 1, so we gave the second team the judges award. It's not a second place award. It's actually, so it's a non-advancing award. And sometimes people think, oh, the judges award, I got this is really lame. It's actually a pretty special award to get because judges have to really think out of the box. And you have to really there has to be something that your team did that sat with the judges, that they remembered throughout the day. One of my favorite judges awards that I gave, it was actually my idea at the World Championship many years ago, but it was to a Jamaican team. And just right from the beginning in the judges room and then throughout the day, or throughout the multiple day event, they really just stuck with me and what they had done for their country. And I ended up being able to help convince the rest of the judges in the room that they were deserving of a judge's award. And that's one of my favorite stories to tell. And after the award ceremony, they came up, they knew I was one of the judges in the judging panel room, and they gave me a huge hug and thanked me. So really a judge's award, those are really special awards for the judges to give and for teams to receive as well.
Yeah, there have been some really cool ones at the national level. I think one of the very earliest ones I remember was a team that had created a really great platform for how they went and evaluated other teams for what is called, of course, I just lost the word, in traditional events when you actually have to scope out what your competitors and so forth for alliance selection.
So like scouting.
Scouting, thank you. Yeah, I had lost the word for a minute, a little senior moment. A team that had created an incredible scouting platform, probably, in the early days of FTC. It was very unique, it was very accessible, and they actually shared that quite broadly. Very cool kind of thing that doesn't quite fit in any of the not quite connect, it's not, so it wasn't quite there, but it was incredibly cool, and the team was very passionate about it. And so those are the kinds of things I think for a judges award. And I believe this year, even for remote events, we're going to try to maintain as much of that kind of experience for the teams and the judges as we can. There's a question around how many judges will be in an interview, and I think at a minimum, it's at least 2. There may be 3. There's never more than that, I don't think. Anika, what do you think?
I think that it's very unusual for there to be more than 3 judges. Usually it's 2 judges. I'm not sure with a remote event if we'll be able to gain more judges or if we'll just but yeah, usually 2 or 3.
Yeah, particularly for the callback ones. So basically the way the day works is the very first interview you have with the judges is what we call the pitch session. So it's the teams, you get 5 minutes to come in and tell them all of the great things and how they relate to the award. So you basically have 5 minutes to market your team and its accomplishments in all the different judged areas. You don't have to spend time on the control award. That is done through, as we talked about, the submission form. But the other ones, you absolutely want to talk through. The portfolio is the sort of what you would leave behind, I'll say, right? As the sort of, here's a little bit more information about what we told you. And then the judges go back, they create basically who are their favorite teams across each of the award categories. And then they get combined into what are called award panels. So maybe in the morning I'm one of the interview judges, I'm looking across all of the awards. And then in that second round, now I focus in on one award or maybe two, right? So I may be part of the design panel or I may be the innovate and design panel and really looking which team makes sense for which award from the teams that impressed from the first set of interviews. And so that's those callbacks. So every team will receive a callback, whether they were on the short list or not. That's one of the big changes for the remote event structure, is every team will have now two. And where they get which callback panel that they see may have more than a couple of judges. It, for example, if my panel is doing design and innovate, there may be actually 4 of us in that. So that would be the only thing I'm thinking through, that why you would see more than a couple of judges.
If I might intercede for a moment, we have 5 minutes before the next session is supposed to start.
Oh, thank you.
We may want to think about wrapping up so that we can shut down and bring back up again.
Okay. There's a question about the event platform. I think we'll have to defer on that. That's TBD. It is not, I can tell you it's not likely to be go to webinar. In fact, I'm pretty darn sure it's not going to be go to webinar or go to meeting. It will not be WebEx. It may be Google Meet or Zoom as the video platform, and there will be an event platform, and then there's this first event hub, and all of those interactions are still TBD. The round 1 and round 2 are done exactly the same. They're basically pre-scheduled interviews that you have through a web conferencing type of tool, whether that's Zoom or Google Meet or similar. So with that, Anika, any last parting words?
Just really think of gracious professionalism this season. I know that it is different. I know that there will be challenges that will come across. Things will be changing. Stay up to date with those changes, but also make sure to be as gracious as possible, in that we're all going through these changes kind of together in these challenges. I think it's going to be a great season. I'm very excited about it. I'm excited about the game. I think it has a lot of great, I guess I don't want to say potential, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
As a final note, Game Manual 1 is updated.
Oh, excellent. On the first website. Excellent.
Yes.
So anything we didn't get to, I know there's a couple of questions that came in right at the end. We do need to drop. So the way this will work, I'll stop the recording, we'll drop the webinar, and then we'll immediately come back and start getting ready for our 1:15 session with Mark, Jeff, and Rick on game Q&A and walkthrough. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Anika.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Have a great season.
Okay.